Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Decisions Lunch and Learn. I am going to be your host for today, Gregory Goldston, on this Monday, July the 28th. A few things I want to go over. First and foremost, in the top right, we have our Decisions Support YouTube channel. Highly recommend checking that out if you're looking for introductions on how to do particular things in the product, such as working with Excel steps, working with the Kafka module, or anything between there. We also upload our previous Lunch and Learns here. So if you had your question answered and you didn't quite remember exactly what we went through to implement a solution, feel free to check back there. Look for your question on the submersed, I'm sorry, not submersed, on the Lunch and Learn, and hopefully you can find your answer through there. Secondly, check out the Decision Solutions Marketplace. This is where we are going to upload accelerator projects that you can pull into your environment, experiment with, reverse engineer, implement parts into your potential build, and hopefully that just gives you some tools that you can work with. These are free to download, by the way, no cost these. And then sign up for the Decisions Product Roadmap Review. This is a place where you can see new things that are coming to the product in future versions of Decisions. You can sign up for those at decisions.com/events. Also, another thing that you can sign up for at decisions.com/events is Submersed. We have Submersed coming up quite soon. You can sign up for that. It will be an online Submersed the 11th through the 13th of August. And yeah, highly recommend checking that out. So with that being said, I'm going to move over to my decisions environment now, and then we will start addressing some Q&As. We had some pre-submitted questions already, so we'll start with those, and then we'll go over the rest of the Q&As in here. So give me just a moment while I move over. So we're going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share this screen instead. Yeah, here we go. All right, y'all should be able to see my decisions environment. And now that you can, I can pull up my participants list as well as the questions in the Q&A. So pardon me just a moment while I bring all that stuff over. First and foremost, we had a pre-submitted question by Marvin. So let me allow him to talk real quick and we will address that. So Marvin, you should be good to talk. And if I recall, your two questions were question number one, you wanted to understand. Oh,
Technically, question number one is not really a question. I got to looking at it again. It's a statement. It's not
yep.
something we said. So you can skip to question two.
Okay. Yep. So let's go over that right here.
But yeah, if you want to.
Absolutely. And then question number two, you're asking about the hide and show form controls as far as where is the hide all, right? That's what you're asking?
I thought originally there was like hide multiple controls.
There is. Set control visibility takes that functionality. So when you click set control visibility over, you can check the box for every single control that you want to set the visibility for, and you can choose whether it is visible or invisible. So we have consolidated it into one step.
Therein lies the trick. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Set the visibility value down there and which controls it applies to. Okay, so yep, that is the first one. We also had another one, but they're not in the room yet, so we will address the other questions first. First of all, from James here, I have a couple of questions about the new Flex layout here. Let me let you talk real quick. Okay, what you got?
Hey, couple of quick questions, and admittedly, we just downloaded 9.13 and we started playing with it. I've read through the documentation, but I haven't gotten all that familiar. So these questions might be addressed in the documentation. I just haven't found it yet.
No worries.
But on the flex grid layouts, I've got two columns of data going down my page, okay, like for the desktop view.
Okay.
And I've got a left-hand column and a right-hand column, and I've got the data, the fields in a certain order that I want in that left-hand column, and I want them to stay in that order. And then, but when it flexes over, like for a mobile phone, I want that whole right column, all the fields that are listed there, to go underneath the left-hand column fields, not to like sandwich them together. I know that's most likely possible, but I'm just not quite sure how to handle that yet with a flex layout.
I got you. Yeah, that should absolutely be possible. Let's figure this out together. We're going to create a new form, and I've already got an idea of how to make this work. So flex test. And then if I recall, we've got 2 columns like you mentioned, and we're going to have here, I'm going to make the whole thing a flex layout, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So we're going to have a column on the left side, column on the right side. We want to make sure that when we like smash this together, when it's on a mobile form, it's going to instead drop down below it. So let's see here. If we want each column to take up a certain amount of space, then our predefined width is going to matter over here. So our designer width is 800. If we were to set this to take up those columns instead, I'm thinking about this real quick. So if that grid layout's the first thing in each column over there, how would we make this?
Well, we need a flex grid within a flex grid with
That's what I'm thinking.
like 2 column flex grids next to each other, and then set them up in such a way that when you do condense the page width-wise, it'll just pop that other grid below the other one. That's what I'm
Right.
thinking. I just don't know how to execute that correct yet.
That's what I'm thinking about right now, because if we want to keep those over there, have them in a separate column, but then it drops down and has each of those. Yeah, we're going to need 2 flex layout grids. I'm going to make this take up 6 columns. So this one's always going to be that same amount, and we'll put some stuff in there. Height type. Let's make our height type flexible, actually. Let's set a minimum height of 200 and a maximum height of 600. And let's drag another flex layout over. And this one's not going to be by column. This one's going to be a fixed width of 400. Oh, whoops, too much. Let's try 350. Yeah, 350. All right. Oh, right, because it would be 800 for that. We're taking up 6. So this is 6 columns, and we have that little space over there. Okay, so width type over there. We're going to justify content to the center so that this looks nicer over here. Yeah, not this content in the center. I don't care about this one. This one we want. There we go. So those are now evenly spaced. Now let's drag in some controls. So we'll have a button that's going to always be at the bottom. So I'm going to have that take up 12 flex controls. This will be our submit button. And now let's put some stuff in this and see if this functions how we want it to. So we'll start with, name, amount. That'll all be able to flex appropriately within there, or you can just leave it across as 4 columns, make each of these 6.
Yeah, maybe put a couple more rows in there so that we can make sure that when that other column goes under, it goes under all the rows.
Yep, exactly. And then this one, I'm going to set this to 6 just so this looks nicer. I'm not going to allow these to flex yet. We can make these flex if we want to, but I'm not going to rearrange
fine.
the order.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the functionality of that second column.
Okay, and then we'll have a checkbox. We'll just call it complete, and that I'm also going to make 6 columns. And now we'll add some more stuff over here.
Right.
Let's add more text boxes.
Maybe make that address stuff or something. Or,
whatever.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, let's set flex column 6 within that one. Model. I wonder if I can control both of these and set that. I can't. Okay, I was curious if I could do that. Flex column 6. Oh, that does work. All right, good to know. And then we have a drop down, say year. Pick the year of this particular model, but maybe this gets updated dynamically or something. 6. String, I need something here. Static. Oops. All right, that should be enough for us to see multiple rows. Now let's see if this functions how we're hoping for it. So we're gonna run a flow. This. All right, so let's see here. We'll debug this. So that shows like that. And if I squash this,
Yep.
everything's below it. There we go.
All right. That's exactly the functionality I want. Because when we design our forms, a lot of times we will want what's in one side of the form to stay together. And then the other side, there might be details that we need to if it's a mobile phone, just to shift them under the whole thing. Not do like a deck of cards and just like shuffle them, you know.
Right, I got you. Yeah. Keep these in their order. I completely understand what you're saying with that.
Yeah.
So let me mention that for this second one, you don't actually need a flex column. You can make this a grid. The whole thing that you need to be aware of is that this width is in columns, so this always takes up a set amount of that space. And this
Right.
one's going to adjust to the width of the form. So this one's either fixed or flexible.
Right. Okay. So, but if I did make it flexible, it would just, if it were on a PC or whatever, it would look better, wouldn't it? I mean, it just kind of like divide the screen in half and yeah, like that.
Right, yeah. So what I can say is the base width is 350. I want the minimum width of this to be at least 300, so it can't go below that. And if people stretch this out, I can make this max width something else, right?
Gotcha.
But the moment that this whole column drops below 700 in width, it's going to squish that in because this is taking up half, and then yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Okay. One other question I have, you see how your page is a certain size right now?
Yes.
Is there a way that you can make the page size dependent on whatever the flex grid is showing at the time and then adjust accordingly?
Make the page grid the flex size on whatever the
In other words, right now,
I think he's referring to the length.
yeah, the length of the page.
Okay.
Can that adjust according to what's on the page instead of you having to define how, you know, how big that page is initially?
Let me think. Can I make it with
See right there, you've got it's 800 by 600.
right?
Well, if I'm not showing the height of 600, you know, if there's like that, like you got on this, there's a big white space there. And when you run that form, I don't want that white space being there. I want it to conform to that. But if I have a lot of hidden fields, yes, I want it to expand the page more.
Change the height type to flexible. Set a minimum height over here. I'll say it needs to be at least 400. Actually, I think 300. And then have a maximum height applied over here so it can go up to 600. Save that. And now when they get pushed over here in the debug, you're going to not have that information. But as soon as you slide it down, right?
Okay. So and then that other size would be like, that's when it's going to start scrolling. So
right. Yeah. So
right.
yeah, I can make it this way. And if it's really small, right, then it would scroll down. I made a minimum of 300. I can't go below 300, right? So
okay. So on phones, do you get the scroll bar? I just haven't used these on phones yet to see.
You can get the scroll bar.
Or does it scroll like just normal, like a phone would? You don't have scroll bars. You just scroll it with your finger.
You would have a scroll bar depending on the minimum height of this right here. So I've set the minimum height to 300, which is fine for what I've got before. But the moment these get stacked, that exceeds 300, right?
Yeah.
So I need to set the minimum height a little bit taller so that when that does squash, right, then that would be able to not scroll instead.
Right. Okay. So really, it's kind of just, you're just kind of like dividing the difference between what you're going to see on a page on a computer. So you don't want it like the whole form to be bigger than your normal computer screen. But then on a phone, because on a phone, you would want that height to be whatever. I mean, it could, because you don't want them to have a scroll bar on a phone.
Right,
necessarily.
exactly. So let's see. If we calculated the height of this one, I think we specified it. So this one has a flexible height, a minimum of 200 maxes. So that's taking up at least 200, and then that's taking up at least 200, right? So
Yeah,
that means when these are stacked, it's going to be at least a 400. I can make these heights flexible, right? So I'm going to set
yeah,
this a minimum height to 100 and a max of 6. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to set this a minimum height of 100, a max of 600. So that means that now my 300 should definitely work because these are going to get stacked on top of each other, right?
right. And that,
So
yeah,
now let's save that. Let's debug this. And now, even if I were to slide this over, I'm
yeah.
not going
You
to,
don't,
well, this takes
right,
up a little
unless you
bit too much
compress it.
space. Yeah, I
Right.
just got to make that minimum height a tad bit small, tad bit bigger, right?
Okay. Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. I think I'll just keep playing with it and stuff. But that answered my initial questions there. I just hadn't found those settings yet. So
Mm.
cool.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Glad to assist. All right, I'll go on to our next question now, which is from here. Katika, is that how I pronounce your name? You should be able to talk now.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I have the specific scenario where I have these three fields, which is employment type, detail, and material type. Uh, all are cascaded in with each other. Like whatever we'll select the employment type, the menu options for detail would be dependent on that, and similarly for material type. So my very first question is that how can we implement something which is without using the stored procedure? With stored procedure we can do it, but without stored procedure how can we do that? And the second part is like based on the last field, which is material type, I want the other fields which are like there are 6 or 7 fields which are kind of dependent on what is selected on material type. So I want them to be enabled and disabled at the selection of material type. So how can I make it dynamic?
Yep, I can show you exactly how to do that. We're going to be using some active form flows here. So first, let's create one here. The data name, this will be our static dropdown. This will be the one that just starts by default. All right, so they'll be able to pick a static option, and we are going to specify some string values here. Let's make it static, and this will be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so they drop down. They can choose either 1, 2, or 3. Actually, let's just make it 1 or 2. Otherwise, this is going to take a while. So 1 and 2. So when one of those is selected, you are looking to have another drop down that dynamically populates based upon whatever this selection is up top, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Quick question on this. Are you using this as a filter for what you're fetching? Are you trying to run a procedure? Where does this information come from based on this?
So currently, there is no stored procedure for this. So I'm putting up a static information there, and
Hmm.
but then there's another problem. Like if we are not doing the data is enormous over there. Like the list goes on for 20 drop downs, and each drop down has another 40, 50 options inside the another field. So apart from stored procedure, is there any other way we can do that?
Um, Yes, you can create a database integration or some sort of API call that would run in the background when that executes to pass in that information. Or if you want to populate statically, you can do that too. I'm going to call this dynamic. This
Okay.
is the list of item dynamic list. I'll call this dynamic list. And then the selected item will be dynamic selected. Okay. So
Okay.
that's going to be whatever the user selects here. And this is going to come from information that's inside of this control. So here's how we make this work. We're going to create something called an active form flow. This is going to populate the dynamic dropdown. And this is going to run every time the selection on the static one is changed. All right. So let's go over here. We've determined how this is going to drop down, and this is going to populate our particular control. Now, in our case, there are a few different ways you can do this. One, maybe you're running a query integration, right? You want to execute something on your database I'm not sure exactly where you mean. Do you mean like a stored procedure in a database is what you've got created, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm calling those stored procedures which are created in SQL.
Okay. Gotcha. And you don't want to call the procedure. You want to get that information how?
Yes. So if I don't want to call that, that's the only solution I am looking for. Like, how can I just call that without calling for the stored procedure? Because right now we don't have a stored procedure for this particular drop downs. So, is there any other way we can do without creating a stored procedure?
Yes, there is. Absolutely. We can create what's called a SQL integration. First, I'm going to set up the logic here, and
Mhm.
then we'll go from there. So we're going to do a string match step. That's exactly what we're going to do here. So here's a string match step. This is going to determine the outcome based on our possible matches. So let's see. We called it 1 and 2, right? Those are the two different ones that we had. And our string to match comes from our form data, our static dropdown, and the selected item, right? The particular one that we put in.
Okay.
All right, so this is going to be whatever the user picks. There's also a no matches. If nothing matches, no reason to populate the other one, right?
Mhm.
All right, so if nothing matches, we'll populate there. For 1, we're going to run one of those query integrations, and for 2, we'll run another one. I'll show you how to create them, and I'll create a static version here because I don't have that information in external database right now, right? So
Yeah.
let me just drag all these to the end as well because it doesn't like that there's a validation issue in active workflow. So let's exit out of this. You would go over to create data type / integration. You would create a database integration, and then you would add a query integration, right? So that you can fetch that information as you need.
Mhm.
Yep. So I'm going to guess it's like a select or something like that. I can do any connection that I want. Now, if you don't have this connection set up here to your database, the way that you would do that is you go to Manage, Integrations, Databases. You would create a connection, and what you do is you specify what type of database you're connecting to. I don't know exactly which one you're using right here. I'll pick MS
MS.
SQL.
Yeah,
All right.
that.
Specify the server name, right? Whatever server it is, the database name, and then pass in your SQL Server credentials.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
once that has done, you now have a database configuration that you can select from when you're creating this integration over here. So you can select it from that database that you have added. All
Okay.
right. And now over here, I'm going to do a select all from, and then you can specify whatever query you want. I'm assuming it's a select query because you're populating this, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to
Yes.
say select all from entity account, where account, or sorry, account email. Where is it? Email address. That's what it's called. Where email address equals, and then you see these parameters over here. I'm going to add one. I'm going to call this variable. I don't need to give it a default value, but I can. And now I can do at variable. Let's give this a test. Let's run this. That's going to be 0. Let me give it a default value, admin at decisions.com. Let's see if this works. Yeah, it pulls back that one result, right? So what we're doing is we're creating a dynamic variable that would get passed in as the fetch criteria for this particular operation. Oh, I do need to give it a name. Fetch dynamic list. Oh, it doesn't like spaces. That's right. All right, so fetch dynamic list, you save this, right? And you'd create, you just need one of these if you're passing it for a variable. I don't know if you need particular queries for each one, but you can do that as well. And then what you would do over here is you would, where'd it go? Drop down population over here, edit this, pass this in. And then underneath of integration, you would go down to your database, select the connection that you've created for your database. I selected local connection, but yours would be the name of whatever your database
Okay.
connection is called. And then you would run that query that you created right here. And notice, because I gave it that variable, I now have this input that I can pass in to filter those results.
Mhm. Yeah.
And now that I have that select data type, I can select the data type to be data rows, or I can specify the particular type that I want. I'm going to do data rows in this one, and then I'm going to map the list of those values to my particular input over here. And what I mean by that is I'm going to use a set control value. I specify the form control, which in our case is going to be our dropdown, our dynamic combo. And it's going to look for either selected. I don't have to give it a selected. I'm not going to in this case, but I do need to populate that list, right? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to put in my dynamic data rows, and I'm going to hit done. And now those query results, right? Especially if they're just in the list of string, which I don't know what data type you use. You may need to do some data type mapping if it's a complex object, but otherwise you can just pass in a string, set the control value, and then when that particular one gets run, it is going to pass in that information into this dropdown at runtime.
Okay.
Let me do it with a static one because, again, I don't have that query integration set up yet, just so you can see how this is functioning. So let me create a constant, and then this is going to be A, B, and C. So if someone selects control 2, it'll be A, B, and C. I'm going to copy this real quick. Copy, paste, delete this. And then, oh, wrong one. And then this one, if someone selects 1 instead, it will be the actual numbers 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
Okay.
So now that these are running, again, these would be your query integrations. I'm just using constants. You can see how this functions in the flow. Save this, run drop down because active form flows do not function in preview mode. So we must show them this way. Drag the form over, specify the form that we just made, pass that over here. And now let's debug this. All right, so static has 1 and 2. This doesn't have anything yet, right? And I can have this disabled as well. I select 1, and now I have a drop down here, right? I select 2, I have a different drop down.
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, but I also have a follow-up question on this. Like, this is for the cascading effect for the drop downs. What if I want, like, there are 7 or 8 fields which are kind of dependent on the last drop down, which is here, like dynamic is the last drop down here.
Okay.
So there are 7 8 fields which are dependent. If I select A, there will be 3 of them enabled. If I select B, there are 4 of them enabled. C, all of them enabled. D, none is enabled. So in that dynamic scenario, how do we do it?
I got you. I'll show you exactly how this functions. We're going to actually use very similar logic to what we just did right now. Okay. So we want different outcome paths to set different things depending on whichever one is populated. So
Yes.
a truth table is good for a lot of information like that, but a truth table does not by default have different outcome paths. So instead, we're going to use another string match step. All right. Now, I do want to specify something here. If you're fetching these values from an integration, right? And you kind of have to know what these values are going to be, unless you have it set by index. So each value index is going to determine the outcome of these. So let's create some fields here. All right. This is going to be my name. I'm going to create another text box with email. Oh, why didn't that work? Email. And then
Can you add one more drop down?
Can I add one more dropdown? Sure. Give me a moment. Let me figure out why did that. No, I'm just going to delete this and make a new one. I'm not sure what happened there. So over here, that will be email. You want our dropdown that's enabled or disabled based on this?
Yes, number box, text box, and drop down. These
All
are
right.
it.
That's exactly what we'll do. All right, so we got a drop down over here. I need to configure this so this actually functions. Give me a moment. This will be static. I'm not sure what we want to do. 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay. And this can be populated again with similar logic to how we did this, right? When this one's selected, you just create our active form flow that will populate this. So I'm going to create a different active form flow over here. And this one is going to depend on this selection, right? Not this trigger. So we're going to create another active form flow, and this is going to be show controls. What we'll do is when the dynamic selection is changed, we're going to run this. And the dynamic selection has different options, right? It has, let's recall, if I remember, I think it is ABC, and we have 1, 2, 3. If I recall, those are the different ones.
That's correct.
So, all right, show controls. Go over here. Let's do another string match. Okay, so string match step, we have possibilities A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. All right, those are the different options that we have. Now, there are different ways, again, that we can make this function without the string match step in a static way. We can go over that a little bit later, but this is the most direct way to do this. So that's why I'm going to show you this. So we are going to use set control visibility. I need to ask you a question. Are you trying to hide and show the controls or enable and disable the controls?
If hide and show will be there, then the purpose of enabling and disabling is also happening. So might be like, but it will change the layout of the page, right? So rather than disabling or enabling is better option for me, I guess.
Okay, sounds good. So enable, disable. Hide and show would change the form layout if it's in flex format. In the grid, it just kind of hides those particular controls in place. So that depends on how you want to do that. But here's how we're going to do it. We're going to create multiple of these. Paste, 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 paste. And I'm going to set over each of these. All right. So what we can do is we can set these control availability, right? So when A is run, we want to enable, let's say, the name text box and the email without the dropdown. When B is run, we want to enable the dropdown, right? So I do want to mention something that is important to note about this. Oh, I clicked on the wrong one. This one, A will be just the combo box, which is not static combo, drop down. That's it. Okay. So something to keep in mind with this, right? When you are setting the control visibility, you are also hiding other controls, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this one over here. I'm going to bring this beforehand. And what this is going to do is basically act like a reset. So for all of the controls on that right that we want to set, we'll set the name, email, and the drop-down combo box all to not show, right? So that hides them all. And this chooses which ones we are going to show. All right. We're going to do the exact same thing over here. I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste this, right? So depending on your logic, you may not need to run 2 of these, depending on what you're hiding. This is just kind of a surefire way to make sure that everything is hidden first, right? So I'm going to, here, actually, hold on. Let me drag over all these. I'm going to move you all to the right real quick. There we go. All right, and now let's paste another one of these. This is going to be the exact same sort of thing. This hides everything. And let's say C only shows the email one. So constant, that'll be a value. And then for 1, 2, and 3, we have different rules that run, right? So let's paste this. Same thing. We're going to have all those hidden. I'm just going to paste these 2 because we're going to need these as well for the rest of these. Pardon the layout here. And then paste this over here. All right. And now we drag over here. We select our other logic that's going to happen. So for this one, maybe if someone selects this one, they only get the drop down and the name.
Suggestion.
Yes.
Disable all the controls before your string match and just do it once.
Makes sense to me. No, that absolutely
makes sense. All you have to do is turn the ones you want on.
Makes sense to me. So instead of running through all of those, we'll delete this, and then for this one right here, we're going to move him. Yep. And then set that right to the beginning, delete that. Yep, so all of them are going to get sent there by default. This one's going to go over here. And then this control that will be enabled will be the drop-down box and the email. That'll be constant. And then this one is going to enable all of them, the last one, email, name, and drop-down. All right. And that is going to be enabled. Oh, what happened here? Oh, there we go. All right. And then we have to pick where this is coming from, right? So the string to match is going to be the dynamic selected. Whatever the user has selected from the dynamic dropdown will get put into there. And then no matches, we're just going to move it over here. So no matches, everything gets disabled until you pick something. So we'll hit OK on that. We'll save. And now let's run this in the debugger. So now I'm going to pick 1 or 2. I'll pick dynamic 1. Email gets disabled. I pick 3. All of them are running. I pick 2. Name is disabled. Only email and dropdown are showing. If I clear these, then it disables all of them. I go to 2. The last one should show email. C, B is going to show these 2. A will show the last one, right? So you can set up your logic for each one of these.
Okay. But if there are drop downs like 2025 drop downs, so I have to map them like that only, like for
well,
each.
it depends on how you're doing this, right? There's not a way for this to know what information it's supposed to drop down unless you tell it, right? So there are other ways to dynamically upload an Excel file to something like a truth table, which would determine which of those outputs. And you could, in theory, map those outputs that match to each one. I don't know if it would be more performant, honestly. Now, we can take a look into this. We can create some, where do we go? Instead of making this really long thing with multiple different drop downs like we did over here in our controls, we could turn some of these into subflows, right? So that this string match step maybe runs a particular subflow that runs that particular set of rules for it. So you don't have this mass over here. This is not going to know what you want to show, though, unless you tell it, right?
Yeah.
In order, there may be a more performant way. I'm not saying there isn't, but I think we would need to see your exact logic setup to determine how to make it more performant.
Question.
Yes.
Subflows don't have access to form controls.
That's correct. No. You wouldn't be able to run these particular form controls inside of a subflow. But what you may be able to do is you might be able to control what, I don't know if you can pass this in from this one. Where is it? Set control visibility. Set control, enable, disable if data exists. That's not the one. Where is it? Toggle control visibility. Yeah, so we might be able to configure which ones are done from, yeah, actually, enable, hide, show. I don't see show control over here. There is show control.
That would be a major enhancement if we could get that.
That would be very tricky, but
understandable. But to be able to set controls in a subflow would be nice, to say the least.
Completely agree. It's because of this little thing right here. This form rule flow, that's the reason, is because that's not created by default as a subflow option. That would have to, 1, be able to be user created, and then 2, have a way for the user to tie it to a form after creation, right? Because this has context of what form is running this particular flow. You would need a way to tie that to that form in another way. I'm not saying it can't be done, but those would be the 2 things that would need to be configured. Yeah, the moment I run a subflow, you'll see that behavior changes to just standard flow behavior instead. So yeah, Kritika, if there's a little bit of confusion as far as setting that up in a way that's more dynamic, I would reach out to support at decisions.com because they have permission to go inside of your flow, make changes to it, and actually be able to see your logic. We can't show that now because that's your own private data and we post these on YouTube. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But I do hope this helps at least with how you would set up a concept like this.
Yeah. For the first part, it definitely helped me. But the second part, I guess there are a number of options like 2025 drop downs, and mapping each and every drop downs field is like it's too much manual work as compared to uh, if something could be automated or could be retrieved from Excel or database or anyways like we can do.
So the way to retrieve something from Excel would be through an external truth table. So let me talk about this a little bit. Oh, did not like that. I know we have external truth tables. I have to pick run truth table and then pick an external truth table. Okay, so run truth table, create new external truth table, create that. And then we would specify our data element, our value, and then our output based upon that over here. And then we would pick our data source, which can be CSV. So you can pass this in, and anytime you want this update, you just pass in a new CSV that has that mapping.
Okay.
The only downside to this is that you cannot specify a unique outcome path for each individual selection of your row here, which means you would still need some sort of match value for whatever this outcome is, but that could be updated dynamically through this now.
Okay.
Yep. As far as mapping to the show and hide controls, if you have the same logic for multiple dropdowns, you don't need an extra control. I can map A and B to the same one if they both do the same thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't need a separate one for every single outcome. You just map them to the ones that have the same outcomes. Now, as far as dynamically creating that particular flow, I can look into that as far as dynamic mapping with these particular controls. Typically, if these were something that could be a select from flow option, then you could dynamically map which of these are going to be set to Booleans. But because these are checkboxes, that's not going to be available for this particular form control. So I can look into that for you and let you know.
Yeah, that'll be really nice because very first drop down has around 10 records, and then the second follow up drop down has another 20, and those 20 has another 20. So there are a lot of drop down values, and mapping each of them and like literally doing like I think there could be another way where we can actually do it.
Right, there might be. As far as the first part of your question, though, you can absolutely dynamically set that by creating those variables in those SQL Server integrations so that it is populated dynamically. In fact, if you were doing it that way and all you were doing were applying filters, right, you just change the filter for the same query, you don't even need a string match step at that point. All you need is a set control value and a query that runs that changes based upon that input, right?
Okay.
Yep. All right. I'm going to address a few more questions now just so that we make sure that we can cover everyone. But I'll let you know if I find anything on that Kritika.
Thank you so much. But last one, where can I see this video again?
Yes.
If I need to
So
go.
we upload this to our decision support YouTube channel. Usually they get uploaded by the end of the day. So this video will be up on our decision support YouTube channel. It was at the beginning of this as well, but you should just be able to search decision support. Hold on. Let me check it real quick. I'm gonna decision support. Give me a moment. Decision support. And where is it? Give me a moment. I gotta minimize the people here because the moment I don't do that, it's not gonna show up. So give me a moment. Yeah, it is. It's actually decisions-training. So let me pull that up for you real quick. So decisions-training and There it is right here. I'm going to drag this over. There you all go. So decisions hyphen training. There's the channel right there. And as you can see, we already have previous lunch and learns. They're actually in a their own playlist. So you can go back. They're all dated, so you can check which one you were in.
Thank you so much.
Good thing. Alrighty. I'm gonna skip over a few because DeChaco did ask this question earlier on, and I want to address that. It will also take me like 2 minutes. The question from DeChaco was he actually had a twofold one. Can you tab backwards? And can you, where is it? Run flags. I actually put it in this one real quick. Are you able to shift tab to navigate tab backwards? And can you have a drop down populate automatically? I'm trying to find my participants. Hold on. They went away again. All right, here we go. DeChaco, I'll let you talk real quick. The answer to your tab one is you can absolutely do that. If you just run this, I'm going to tab, right? I'm going to tab over different controls. And if I shift tab, it goes backwards. That is absolutely possible.
Okay.
The second one, as far as your drop down, I could not find a way to do that. I have tested it. I do not see a way to automatically populate that drop down without just hitting the down arrow key. So that allows people to select that from the drop down. But I don't see a way to automatically cause the drop down upon tabbing or clicking on the control without selecting this arrow or the down button. I've reached out to the devs about it and I've yet to hear a response, so I will let you know.
That'd be great.
All right, cool. Let's go to Helmut's question here real quick. So you're designing a large, long-running project that has 6 distinct sub-processes. These sub-processes are entire workflows within themselves. In the past, we've enjoyed the power of the flow execution extension, but due to the requirements of the project, using FEE for each sub-process and then having a parent folder for the process folders, is it possible or recommendable? I'm afraid this will cause issues with maintaining relational data. Also, is a submersed free? Helmut, yes, a submersed is free. Also, in regards to FEE, I would not recommend FEE. And the reason I would not recommend FEE is twofold. One, FEE has been removed in version 9.3 and above. So if you're looking to upgrade, you can still use the flow execution extensions you've built, but you won't be able to create new ones.
Right.
All right. So as far as longevity is concerned, I would not recommend that. The second reason is because the case entity can achieve everything that the FEE can achieve.
Yeah, I was really just going to go with the FEE out of familiarity, but I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. I'm familiar with the FEE, so.
Yeah, so something to note about the FEE. So when you're using a flow, I don't actually have access to FEEs because this is version 9.13.
It's okay.
But in the FEE, you have your setup process folder, and then you start using your set state steps along the way and changing the data, right?
Right.
When you're using a case entity, you go to your user-defined types and you create the case entity. That's basically your setup process folder step.
Yeah.
And then you use the set entity state, which is actually better than set state because you get to specify the entity ID, meaning that you don't have to specify the state within the same flow or even the same subflow anymore, right? As long as you pass out that entity ID, you can always change the state no matter what part of the process you're in.
Okay, so for example, my big process has sub processes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so if it goes through process 1 and process 2, process 3, I could kick it back to process 1 via this set entity state is what you're talking about.
That's exactly right.
And
yes,
then
and
go ahead.
What were you gonna say?
I was going to say that, one of the big hallmarks of all these sub-processes is that each sub-process has, a number of tasks, a number of assignments that go to all sorts of different people. So if I build the sub-process 1 to go to A, B, and C tasks, right, but it makes it all the way to sub-process 3, if I kick it back to 1, will it then be able to go back in and run all those tasks again?
Yes. Yeah, this
Okay.
is absolutely a nonlinear configuration. The moment you create a case entity, you get a setup process, a configuration folder, and you specify each state. In each one of those states, you can specify trigger flows and case entity actions that can be taken upon. So as soon as it goes back to process 1, it can kick off all those processes once again. And inside of those kickup processes, you always have access to the entity ID for which got changed. So you always have access to change this state within those processes.
Yeah. I guess one of my biggest things that I'm concerned about with the case entity thing is when you go to your process folder, whatever the equivalent is for the case entity, it shows a different kind of interactive screen with the flow execution extension. It kind of shows all your tasks and you can change and everything like that. Is there a video or something that describes more in depth and like all the little bells and whistles that are included with the case entity?
We have a comparison video that talks about the different types of
Right.
data structures in relation to each other. But as far as the case entity specifically, let me look into that for you if there's something just talking about that. I know different parts of the case entity are covered in our videos, but let me see if there's something specific to just
Specifically.
using it. Yep. Something I do want to mention, though, case entities do allow for custom case dashboards, which means if you don't like the layout,
I
you
have
can
seen that.
change
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So you just have to augment it yourself.
If you don't like that layout. Now, it may be achievable anyway, and you do get your process folder in the right corner. You get your information in the left, who created it, that metadata on the top left, all that sort of stuff.
And so you're making it seem like with this case entity, it is an entirely nonlinear process that can go from subprocess 1 to subprocess 6. So then is it probably not in the best interest of myself to do like 6 separate case entities that all are then in a parent folder, or do you think that the case entity is going to be more than capable of dealing with large scale
I'm
processes
thinking
like
you
that?
just need one for large scale. The only reason you would want multiple case entities is if you're either trying to one track sub processes within maybe a case entity process instead
Which
of just
is their
having
main.
each one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be one possible reason, but keep in mind that each case entity is going to carry with it its own data, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, do I need different actions for this sub part of this case entity as compared to just putting it in a different state, right? Instead of
Yeah.
calling a state like started phase 1, started phase 2, started phase 3. Those are all, unique states within one case entity. It's more about what data you want to store, and do you need additional actions for that different data or information or assignments that are tasked to those separate case entities.
Yeah, and I would say yes. So then in that case, the parent level folder could just be a case entity of its own, and then you have 6 sub case entities in that.
That depends on your process. I don't want to say yes or no because I don't know your process and I don't want to
That's
steer you
okay.
the wrong way.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
okay.
it's definitely doable. What I can tell you is that it's absolutely accomplishable.
Okay.
That being said, case entity is basically the same as FEE. So if you're only using one FEE, I don't see a reason why you would be changing that to 6 case entities per se. But if
Yeah,
you're using
because
multiple
you
FEEs in the
could
first,
instead like use 6 sub like just entity because it will have separate information for each sub process, but I could just like associate an entity a data entity with that case entity, right?
right? Like, do you need additional actions on it, or do you just need it saved in the database along with it? Right? That's the kind of stuff that you need to check.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for the input anyway. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So next one, Manal. Let me unmute you and we'll talk. By the way, we'll go over a little bit to make sure everyone's question is addressed. All right. So Manal, your question is, hi, I'm trying to build a validation that checks between a string and a dropdown. So if you have a dropdown entity in a text box, carry on a form. If it creates a form, same entity as a carrier they've used in the past, it should throw an error. If for some reason my validation is only checking the first 50 records rather than going through the whole list. Manal, I'm not quite sure I understand your question. Can you provide a little bit more clarity? And I'm not able to hear you if you're talking, by the way. I see that it shows you're unmuted, but I'm not sure if there's a mic thing going on. I'll start building out as far as what I understand from this. There's going to be a text box, carrier. And
Can you
then we're
hear me
gonna...
now, Greg? I can hear you now, Greg?
I can hear you now, yes. Okay, awesome.
Okay, awesome.
All right. So next one, Manal. Let me unmute you and we'll talk. By the way, everyone will go over a little bit to make sure everyone's question is addressed. All right. So Okay, so can you clarify what you're looking for?
Gotcha. So in dropdown, I have like 5 fields, right? So for example, KMST is a static field.
Okay.
Just KMST, KM, and then ABCD like you did. And then carrier is just a free form text. So for example, if I come in, I selected KM for the first one. I mean, for example, A for the first one, and then I selected carrier test. And if I
Okay.
come back in, and if I selected the exact same thing that I previously did, it should throw me an error because it already exists. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
All right. So in order to perform that same validation, let me ask 2 different things.
Mhm.
One, are you saving this first selection to a database anywhere?
Yes, I'm saving both of them.
Perfect. That's fantastic. All
Mhm.
right. So then we can absolutely do that fetch. So what we would do is something along the lines of this. I'm going to create an active form flow over here, and this is going to use a fetch entity step, right? So let's say that we're going to fetch, I'm going to just pick account for this one because I don't have those particular drop downs over here, right? You have your database, right? You have your option, you add some fetch criteria. So if the first name, right, you select carrier, right? And this one, you know, I actually am going to create a data. This is going to make a lot more sense if I create a data type. So give me just a moment while I do that. Yes, I know. We'll come back. We'll come back to you. Okay. Let's create a database structure. All right, and this is going to be carrier, and then I'm going to call this text, okay? And then this will be null structure. So this will be the drop down. This will be the one that they type in. All right, so we'll save that. And then we'll go over here into our validation form. Okay. And then we are going to have a submit button. And then I need to create a flow real quick. So what we're going to do is we'll make a flow, and this will be where we run this form. Where is it? Show form over here. Okay. Pick existing. This is our validation form. And then we're going to go to our user defined types, create database structures, null structure. We're going to create one. All right. And that item to create is going to be based upon our carrier selection, which will be our drop down pick, right? And then our text over here, which is going to be our carrier. That's kind of confusing. I'll change that. I'll call this text instead. Label text. There we go. Okay, so there's our drop down, there's our text, right? So now we're going to create an active form flow. This will be our validation form. It's going to run anytime someone changes the drop down selection and anyone sometime changes the carrier selection over here. We're going to use a fetch entity step. All right. So we are going to, on this fetch entities, fetch our unique type that we created, and we're going to add 2 fetch criteria to it. So the field name carrier matches our form data. This is our drop-down selected item. And then over here, we're going to add 1 more fetch criteria, and that's going to be our text matches our form input data. Where's our text box? Carrier text box, string value, done. All right. So what this is going to say, right, is this fetch criteria is going to be applied to these. So if something exists in the database that already has both of these, then we want to, where is it? Set validations over here, right? We're going to set on a particular form control. I don't know which one you want to set this on. I'll just add it to the text box. And then the validation issue is going to be a constant, and that issue is going to be fatal. And it is going to say cannot select same combo. All right. So we'll save that. Validations go here. And then if there are no results, we want to make sure that they can clear the validation so that they can continue to move forward. And we set that on our text box. So we'll save that, exit out of this, hit OK, exit, save. And we'll connect this. And this is going to be ignore. We don't want that pre-populated. And then we're going to debug this. So right now, nothing should be selected. I'm going to select A, and I'm going to put in Gregory, okay? So drop down A, text Gregory. I'm going to submit this, right? That creates a new structure. Now, if I try to run this again, if I select drop down A and type in Gregory, we're going to get a validation here because our fetch entities found a result that matched those two, right? Is that making sense?
Yes, that makes a lot more sense. I was trying to use actual validation, so I think that's where I was messing up rather than doing this. I appreciate it. This helps a lot.
Absolutely. And the moment I change one of these, that validation goes away.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Sure thing. One thing to keep in mind with this, if you want the user to not be able to progress in the form, you have to make sure that on your active form flow properties, that this is run for your outcome or run on all outcomes. This will prevent the user from hitting submit with that validation. All right, so just one little tidbit on that. And then Jose, you've got the last question in here, and then we will wrap up for the day. So hello, I want to ask if there's a way or a workaround to trigger active form flows after a process from the data grid run flow inline field. Oh, interesting. All right, let me allow you to talk real quick. So what you're looking to do, if I'm understanding this correctly, let's go with advanced data grid. So you have a data grid in here that's going to have some information. The type's going to be type account. We're just going to make this simple because I can still add a calculated column after that. Account list. And then we'll set this up over here. So I will show the email address. And then we also want to add a calculated column run flow inline field, right? So the user, I don't know if you want display UI or not. I will say click me. So a little click on that. That'll run, hit OK. And then that gets populated for each account. Let's do a fetch entity so we can show this off real quick. Save, exit. Where's my fetch entities up here? There we go. Fetch entities. I do want results. I want that to go in here. I want to select all of my accounts that are in this, which are not going to be a lot. And then we will grab this, done, debug, and then this gets populated. So what you want to do is when you click this, you want to trigger an active form flow, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let me mention that I've got some good news and bad news for you. The bad news is that you are not able to do this directly from a run flow inline field. There's no way for that to be able to kick off an active form flow. However, there is a different field that will let you run an action that has the ability to interact with the form like an active form flow does. And that particular field is called the custom actions flow. So if I go over here and I go to add, I'm going to drop this down. There is a custom action field that you can select. You specify the action that wants to be taken place. You give the action a name. I'm going to say run flow. All right. And then I can specify an icon for this that the user will click. That will kick this off. And then I pick the particular action. Now notice something in this. I not only have the ability to run flows inside of this, I have the ability to interact with my form like I can in an active form flow. So this is a unique field in the report that acts like an active form flow would in allowing you to make this modification. So that is, you can run all your logic here and make changes to your form with this particular field. Would that function for what you're looking to do?
Yeah, that is definitely it. But I am currently using the older version of decisions, which is what about 8.22. So I don't think that is already available in this version.
You're right. It is not. This is available in version 9.12 and up. So this is not available yet in your version. So let me see. There's not a way for a run flow to directly kick off that. Now, what could be done? this cannot interact with the form, but it can interact with the database, right? So if you have something in your active form flow that is checking that response, or maybe the trigger is designed to run every few seconds, that would allow you to perform that, though that can be a little bit clunky depending on what you are trying to do. And this would be the best solution for what you're trying to accomplish, because this would not be able to kick off an active form flow, unfortunately, at least not from an advanced data grid. Now, you could have, let me show you this real quick. While it doesn't work on the run flow, what can be done in this is you can trigger active form flows from the selection of something in the advanced data grid. Why is that not working? Let me make a new one. I don't know where it is. Drop down, carrier. Where's my advanced data grid? Did I delete it?
It's
No.
not showing.
Oh, we're in info only mode. Hold on. Single select. There we go. Now, output count. Now I think if I go into here, yeah, here we go. So anytime a selection is changed, you can kick that off. However, that wouldn't be the same functionality.
Yeah, actually, I already tried that one, but it is working fine, but it takes a lot of time since it is working like 4 times, even though I just click one run flow inline. So it's like it's looping for I don't know why for several times.
I would reach out to support about that. That sounds like a misconfiguration. Two things to check. One, make sure you're run on all outcomes and your submit may or may not be checked. I don't know if you need that, but these also run whenever an outcome is selected. So that could be the cause of it. The other one is if you're running that flow in the selection change. I don't think selection change would work within the same row, so I don't think that's actually causing it. As far as that multiple running times, I would reach out to support because that doesn't sound like it should be running that way. So there may be a misconfiguration.
All right, but just to take some notes, it's the advanced data grid that I'm using is value change, not selection change. So
Value change. So do you have an inline edit going on? Is that what's your, you don't have single select. Do you have inline edit?
where can I see that? Just to double check. It's inline edit.
It's inline edit. Okay, that makes more sense. Because inline edit is actually going to give you more options on this over here. Because now, you can do selection change, and anytime someone updates a value in that grid, it can kick off something.
Yeah, and as what I've said, that's what's happening. Like it's looping, so it takes like it's loading for a few seconds before it refresh. So my goal
That
is to
works like it's
refresh.
supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound correct. I would definitely reach out to support with that logic. I'd like to go in myself and see, but I can't do that on here. I do think there's something misconfigured that's kicking it off that many times.
I see.
Yeah. I could be wrong. That doesn't sound right.
All right.
But yeah, custom actions flow report custom actions field is exactly what you're looking for to do. That's not in version 8.22. Probably the best workaround is this trigger right here, because the only other way that you'd be able to do that is an auto run, and you'd have some sort of active form flow in the background that would be checking for a database update that occurred inside of your run flow for list every few seconds. This is not exactly the most performant thing because you're running an active form flow every 5 seconds or so. It would achieve the functionality you're looking for, but it may be a little bit clunkier. So not sure if that's the route you want to go, but you can do it this way.
All right. Thank you for that.
Of course. All right. And that is going to wrap it up for today. Thank you all very much for attending. That was the last of our questions. So tomorrow, Jeremy is going to be leading this. I look forward to seeing you all there if you wish to come back. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.